What's up, and welcome to Nacho's Cafe. This is your boy Will, aka Nacho, and today is Talk About It Tuesday, where me and a guest will sit and talk about it, and whatever it is, and that's what we'll be talking about. You ready? All right, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Will, aka Nacho, on the Nacho's Cafe podcast, and it's my favorite Talk About It Tuesday. Again, no tacos that I'm crunching on right now. Eventually I will. Crunch, crunch, So all those who are listening to it out there, please crunch a taco for me, please. So today, I have a special guest, and before I bring him on, he is an activist, very, very positive and very, very he's always out there. Small little story is how I know him. Now, this is actually funny because I think we became friends on Facebook, but that was not the beginning, honestly. We were friends on MySpace. And it's funny because on Facebook, as we were chatting and everything like that, we were following each other. It's like everything we're doing, he's doing, everything like that. And I'm like, why does he look familiar? And that name sounds familiar. So I even looked in my MySpace store and asked me how I knew my password too. It's very, very old. But I logged on there and then I was like, I went through the friends list and I was like, I knew it. I knew I've seen him before. He looked totally different, but that's him, And so I remember messaging like, dude, we've been friends, MySpace friends,
Yeah.
Media friends, whatever you want to call it. We're friends. And I've known him since then. And I've actually got a chance to get a closer look on him as an individual, as being an activist. I've seen him march. I've seen him do protests on everything. And I'm just grateful because as what's going on in America right now, even though on the release of this podcast might be a little later, but this is recording during the week of basically blackout. Okay. But he is always on the front line. He's always protesting with signs and everything just to see change. And to me, that's such a positive and something that I may be back here media wise talking as much as I can. Doing it from my end, but no matter what, we're all kind of not all, I can't say all, but most of us that want to see united, actually live it, and equality, because equality is not categorized in one section. It's like a big, massive thing as humanity, being humans. And I'm just so proud to have him on here. And with further ado, the person that I'm talking about is Armando. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Well, first of all, like you said, we've known each other for many years virtually. We've gotten to know each other too along the way. So when you asked me to do this, of course, I have an opinion and I have things to say. So I was like, let's do it,
Yes.
So thank you. Thank
you so much. So as I ask you a series of questions, one of my first questions are, what does the word activist means to you?
When I hear it or see it on social media, like you said, everybody has an opinion on what an activist should be. Some people categorize an activist as almost like a terrorist nowadays. So to me, activist is not just spreading the word of your own thoughts and beliefs, but actually trying to understand the message of the group, of the organization, of the protest in itself. What is the overall message, and have an empathy towards that, because sometimes you may not relate, you may not know the pain, you may not know the struggle. That doesn't mean you cannot just go and speak your voice. You were saying at the beginning that everybody does also activism, and we work in different ways. And one of the things when I think about also having a voice as an activist, you could do that on social media. You don't have to be on the streets to protest. You don't have to be on the front line to do that. You could speak your mind in different ways. One thing that I always say, you could be your own activist in your own house. How? By educating others, by educating your own people, your family, your brothers, sisters. If you hear I think if you hear a negative comment, because somebody recently told me, when someone says something about another group and they're not there, do you defend it? I'm like, yes. And that's, I think, one of the problems. And going to the question, you could be your own activist at home to speak up. If you hear something negative, whether it's funny, a joke, or whatever, to stop that person and say, you know what, this is not right. This is not okay. And why? Because the minute we do it at home, we normalize that behavior. And then we take that to our friends. And then after we take it to our friends, we take it out to the streets because now we're at a restaurant. And then once we're in the street, everything, becomes the norm and you hear it all the time. So that's when I think the problem begins, because as an activist, you should start at home activating.
That's very true. That's very true. Because when they say home is where the heart is, well, where's your heart at? And when you're going out there, it starts from at home, your heart. So it's actually telling you about who you are as an individual, because, we speak on what we feel. So, yeah.
And sometimes it's not to change people's mind, but it's also for people to understand, again, the message, and to respect the message. Sometimes what we see, or a lot of the times what we see on social media and the news, they're going to focus on the negative. They're going to focus on the highlights of what was negative about each protest. And we could even talk about multiple protests here, but with any given protest, there's always something wrong. Some negative is going to always highlight the positive, but overall, the positive is what we should be focused on and unite. Whether, again, if you don't want to agree with it, that's okay, but respect it as well. Don't bring it down, because every group has something to fight for, every single group.
That's right. Very, very true. I agree with you on 100% on that. Yes. What got you into becoming an activist? Like, was there something that went on in your own community, or something that you witnessed that you just wanted to see change? Like, what was it that created this passion? Because you have such a passion with this, and I admire that. What gave you that passion about becoming like an activist?
So I'm 40, so I'm going to go way back when.
And you look great. Hey.
Thank you. I'm going to go back when I was 14. I pretty much started my high school year, and it was my first day at high school. It was a mixed school. Primarily at the time, it was African Americans, Hispanics, and Polish people. And during that time, the first day, between two gangs, they got into a fight. So after school, and this was between primarily African Americans and Hispanics. So what happens is that when this occurred, I don't know in details what happened, but what the African American gang was doing is that they were beating up the Latino kids, any Latino kid that they would see out after school. So I was about to catch my bus back home. And again, this is my first day in high school. And I got beat up by about, I would say, 15, 20 plus kids, African-American kids.
What the?
While I was getting beat up and I'm on the floor, I see running all of the Latinos now, all of the Latino gang coming. And in a way, I guess, fighting them again. So now I'm between both. I'm literally in the middle of both. But when I was doing or pretty much getting beat up, while I could get up and kind of see, I was seeing people around me and they were just standing. They were not doing anything, absolutely nothing. And this is a 15-year-old getting beat up. Nobody's doing anything. I'm in the middle. Then it started to get more violent. Guns were out and stuff like that. At that moment, I'm more concerned about my life.
Yeah.
So I ran into a bank. The bank guy at the moment didn't want to let me in because I was all like bleeding. And I finally got him to get me inside. He called the police. Long story short, the police came. After that incident, I think that's where I got my passion, that I felt sad that as society, like nobody did anything. Even if you didn't want, you don't need to get involved, but someone call the cops, someone do something.
Right. Why are we watching this? Like, do something about it, Stop it.
And this is back in 1994. So again, like the perception of cops is very different now. I have a strong opinion on that. But regarding that in itself, like that traumatized me. I was taken to the hospital. And even with that said, because of that incident, again, talking about your own family, my dad became, in a way, kind of, I'm not going to say racist, but he had a strong opinion.
Of course.
However, despite that, I kept telling my parents, my friends, like, not everyone is like that. Just because I went through this, it doesn't mean that everyone is like that at all. In most of my friends during high school, yes, we're Latinos, but I had a lot of African American friends. So that's where I started my passion. That was the initial thing at 15. And if I flash forward, when I was 23, I was diagnosed with HIV.
Mm-hmm.
So then at that moment, it was kind of like a second thing that got me passionate about, because again, as a Latino, we don't talk about it as well. It's a taboo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, an organization actually reached out to me and they said, would you like to speak about your story? And I was already with someone. So I told my partner at the time if I wanted to do that, because the minute you Google my name, you could Google my name and the first thing that comes up is Armando Ramirez, HIV. Yeah. So I know that by doing that, that was also a voice to speak about that issue, because it's still a taboo. So I guess to answer the question, those were the two primarily things that impact me. Yeah. Why is that? No, I need to speak up about things that affect me. But for everyone else where I see injustice, I need to be in it, whether it's on the front line, whether it's on social media, whether it's at home.
Yeah. Wow. I give you like mad props on just doing both, because I known that, well, especially those two events itself, I've always known you to stand up with that, and I always see you there. And it's so positive to see someone, because there's so much negativity on minorities and negativity on HIV, because HIV is not only in gays, but they still like to make it seem like, oh, we're not like, excuse me.
Yes.
What happens when you keep sleeping around with her and her and her and her and her, and somebody has something and then you spread it to everybody else? So what do you think? It is not just about gays, and no, it's anybody can get it. I mean, come on now, So I think it's very ignorant how people try to put a lot of things in boxes. But it's just, thank you, because like you actually took action to stand up, and question, how can I phrase this? What kept you from not actually becoming prejudiced against other African Americans? Because what, normally in the society, and we see this all the time, all it takes is one act of some in particular group for us to form that opinion on them, and that means all of them are like that. You get one Hispanic that rapes your aunt, all Hispanic are rapers.
Yes.
And rapists, and one Black broke into your house and was looking for drugs and killed your mama. Now all Blacks are thieves and killers. So what kept you sane, basically, from jumping to that side of mentality?
Because you said sometimes one incident can affect us for good or for bad.
Yeah.
But I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 7. And one of the first teachers that was very patient with me, that was always there, was an African American lady. And she was always so passionate, and she would go out of her way to teach me things. We would use the dictionary to translate.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I'm not sorry, actually, for getting emotional, but she was one of the first people that helped me out so much. So to me, it's like, if I go based on my experience, she impacted me a lot. And would I then go back with the incident at 15 and say like, oh no, now all Black people are this? Like, no, it's not fair. And I've been always very vocal since I was a kid. And I always been very open-minded to just see people as who they are. Unfortunately, not everybody is like that. But to me, it's like, I'm not gonna, this thing that's happening to me at 15, take away from everyone in the past that has been there for me. Like, it would be stupid and ignorant of me to even do that.
Yeah, it's crazy how when I was in high school, it was always those two always at each other, Hispanics and African Americans. And being that I'm biracial of the two, my friends being funny, like, Will, get in the middle and stop it. like you're us and you're them, like, stop it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, then they're gonna come in like, I don't speak Spanish. I'm like, I'm sorry, daddy wasn't there. What can I do? So I can't speak. I'm sorry. But it's just being that we're minorities, because I actually replaced the word minority with majority, because we are the majority that creates the United States, in my opinion. Because without us, you wouldn't have united. You would have
Yes.
some plain. If you didn't have the culture backgrounds of all of us as a unison, you would not have united. Because what's united if you can't unite more than one in particular background? Because there's one race, humanity. Humans is one race, but cultural backgrounds, your features come from somewhere. That's important, because you should never forget where you come from.
And even when we speak about our own race, because someone recently also asked me this, or told me this, actually didn't ask. They're like, well, you could pass as a white person, so to an extent you have white privilege. And I did say yes, like I recognize that, because even in Mexico, if you look like this, there's more good attention for you. If you don't, then like my brother and I, we look completely different. And if you were to see my brother, he looks very Hispanic. And growing up, I would get all of the attention because of how I look. And I think, again, when you look a certain way, then you also have to even do more, because if you already have, this could be privilege to me, then what am I doing to then change that around, to turn it into something positive, and to speak on others that might not look like this?
I have to agree 100% on that, because although my father wasn't around to show me the more of the Hispanic culture background, just in my society, in the African American group, categorize this as well. If you're lighter, you are up here. If you're middle, which I consider myself, at this skin tone, we're the middle class or whatnot. So you might listen to me. I might get a word. Now, same thing for my brother. He's a lot darker than me, because we had two different fathers, same mom, and he's a lot darker. That sometimes made me nervous around this whole entire time. If it was me and him, I got nervous for him, because it's like, he looks darker. I'm scared not scared. Well, yeah, I am at times, thinking that if he goes out there, I don't want no one to get the wrong idea. He's very harmless. He's a nice guy. He's more what you would call whitewash, but, for term's sake, and categorize when we're not white, we have a term called whitewash, means that they don't present the habits of stereotypical communities. So like Hispanics, there's stereotypes that they'll say about them. If you're not making tacos and burritos and you're not Mexican enough, or you don't speak Spanish. If you're Black, if you're not pants sagging down and hair is not really, really looking a certain kind of way, I'm not Black enough. And I have been discriminated more in my own community, because they would think that I'm better than. They're like, oh, you think you're better than? I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Why are you looking at me? I don't know you. We're not cousins. So I'm not trying to be better than anybody. I'm trying to be better than what I was yesterday. So if that offends you in some way, I'm sorry for that, but that sounds personal, and I ain't got nothing to do with that. So deuces,
I'll speak for the Mexican people, because again, I'm Mexican. But just to give you an idea, even like as far as getting a job in Mexico, here is not common, but in Mexico, when you present your resume, it has to be printed out, and you have to put, I forgot if it's the left or the right, you have to put in the corner of your resume your picture on your resume. Wow. I don't know if that has recently changed or it's still the same, but you used to put it like on top of your resume. So a lot of people, a lot of companies would look at your resume, but would look at the picture, and they would say like, this person not because they look darker. This person is okay because he or she looks better or more presentable. Wow. So that's another cultural thing where, again, like many people may not know, and
Mm-hmm.
and you might, as a Hispanic here in the U.S., have that privilege that where you're not gonna go. You might be discriminated based on the name. If it's like
Yeah.
my name is very Hispanic,
Uh-huh.
Armando Ramirez. You
Yeah.
cannot Americanize my name.
Yeah.
If it's Carlos, you call yourself Charlie. If it's Caesar's, Cesar,
Yeah.
Caesar, like Maria, Mary, like you can flip those names.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Armando, it's Armando. That's very Hispanic.
Yeah.
But that's another example about our own culture when it comes to having certain privilege, because again, the way you look, and a lot of Hispanics here, maybe not, I don't know, first, second generation, may forget or not understand or may not know these things about our own culture. But I mean, we used to do it all the time.
Wow. And you get a visual because anyone can have a certain name out there,
Mm-hmm.
but if they can see, that's so crazy. I never knew that. And you're definitely shining some light my way, on their applications here. It's like what race or how do you identify yourself is. And I
Correct.
hate that, growing up, it's like, oh yeah, I'm black, and then like, you don't think of it. I think when we're growing up, we don't even think about it. It's just like, I'm proud of who I am.
Yeah.
And I know my, cultural background, which I always found myself in a dilemma because a lot of applications, especially when it started coming out later, it was like African, but not Latino. I'm like, well, where the heck do like, I'm not ashamed of who I am, neither side. So it's like, if I'm African, I'm also Latino. So where is the bubble for that? It's like not even on here. And I'm like,
Yes.
so you're considered them not people? Like what? So my mind goes all over the place, and it's like, I don't like it. I'm human. Like, I wish all that would just go away. So for the uneducated, how would you explain protest, rioting, and you don't have to really go into activists, but how it would be different. But what is, like, how would you, for someone who's uneducated, what is the difference in the three?
Well, I recently posted this on my social media, but and again, the conversation started at home, and then I took it to friends where I said to them, as a human, you already have one right, that alone. Now, if you ask yourself, how many rights do I have right now? How many? You're gonna have multiple, a lot. Like I am Hispanic, I'm gay, I'm HIV positive. So to answer that, I started the conversation again with family and friends, but I'm like, ask yourself how many rights you have at the moment. And because of those current rights that you have right now, someone fought for you on a protest, on a riot. There was an activist speaking on your behalf.
Yeah.
And on those protests, on those riots that you didn't live through, that you did not see, it's pretty much what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But at that moment, it was affecting your own group, your own right, your own specific right, again, with one or more. So when you say to me, right now, what's happening is just ignorant, or go ahead and protest, but you cannot do X, Y, Z, then I ask you the same thing. Then I should go back to those back history riots and protests. And if you're not okay with it, then let me take your rights away and see how you feel. Because that's what it is. Like I never knew what happened in Stonewall.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm familiar because I know the history, and I educated myself on that. But even that, a lot of gay people, I'll just speak even now about gay people, like they forget, they think Pride Month is just parties and parades and all that. And to me, it's like, you forget it's not just clubbing and partying. Like someone fought for your rights, and people forget about that. So if I could say again about uneducated people, there is no excuse. And I'll put my own dad as an example. At one point, he said, I was never raised to knowing what a gay person was. I'm like, that doesn't excuse it. You have to educate yourself. And it's the same thing with what's going on in our world. Like, you have to educate yourself on things that, again, you may not live it, you may not experience it, but that doesn't excuse you from not learning about it. And not, I mean, I could go out right now at night and get food without thinking something's going to happen to me. And actually, while I was on a protest on Saturday, to be specific, I was next to obviously a lot of people, but specifically this lady, and she's like, "Are you here alone?" I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Well, I'm here with a few friends, but I think they're up front." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So we kind of started engaging in the conversation and talking. And she said, "You know what? My kids are at home. I didn't want them to be here because they're teenagers, they're younger, but I wanted to come." But how I always tell my friends who are parents that as a Black mom, I always have to pray differently for my kids. And again, like a lot of moms that cannot empathize on that, like, or cannot even experience it, that's also ignorance. I always say, like, the word, many people don't like the word ignorant, but when you don't know something, you are ignorant to that.
This is very true.
And it is your duty to then educate yourself on things that, again, you may never go through, you may never experience, but that doesn't excuse it now. Right now, it's easy for any gay guy or anyone to just say, "I don't want this and this from a protest." Well, guess what? You cannot pick and choose what you're going to do in a protest, because we're trying to send a message. And when you're sending a message, like, how many people have been peaceful previously on protests, and how has that worked? So to me, it's like, you can't pick and choose on when it comes to all of this that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't.
Yeah. And pain for all of us is different. Your pain is different than my pain. So how people react is how they react, upon their own personal experience. Yeah, that word ignorant, it could be offensive to some people, but it's so true, because I believe that even being an activist, like, it's important to do your research. It's important to educate yourself on what you're about to step into.
You have to, and sorry to cut you off, when you just said that, you have to do your own research. And why? Because a lot of people forget how social media works, but the minute you put something out there, two things. One, expect that not everyone is going to think like you. Two, you have to have information to back up your own post. Whether that's a ignorant post or a positive post, whatever it is, you have to back that up.
Yeah.
And I always say that if you don't want that, then don't post it, period. But if you're going to post anything, whether I agree with or not, then back it up. Right. Again, like, show me receipts, show me something. Like, don't just say anything stupid. Like, actually prove me wrong. That what you're saying is right. So prove me wrong. Show me something that you actually know information.
Yeah. I totally agree. That was gonna be one of my questions, but we kind of answered that anyway. But that, I totally agree, because, like you said, I mean, everyone has an opinion, and everyone's gonna throw something out there. And once you put it out there, I mean, for those who are following, you have the right to remove yourself from following that person. And also, they also need to keep in mind that this is not their Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform that this person that they're following is saying. If you are offended in any kind of way, unfollow, and just remember, this is their stuff. So they exercising their rights. They have the right to say whatever they want, and then the person on our side, just like you're saying, platform and say anything. I mean, yes, do your homework, because someone's going to be a little smart ass and be like, "Oh, well, when did da-da-da-da-da, or how, or what, and what makes a difference than this, happening over here?" And then you do your homework, and you're like, "Well, this is why." Like, shut them up with knowledge, and just,
you just said the keyword, knowledge, because I think a lot of people that post and you contradict them, and they don't have the information, because, again, they are so ignorant that to the post that they did themselves, and because they don't have nothing to say or how to back it up, the typical comment that you will get is like, "Well, if you don't like it, get off my page," or "Don't comment." And to me, they only do that because they cannot back up what they just said. So I cannot stand that. And I always, again, I call people out, whether they're close friends, family, like coworkers. I'm like, no.
Yeah. And, being someone that's always hungry for knowledge, hungry for wisdom, hungry for other people's experiences, I don't mind being called out. I'm like, well, tell me, how is that wrong? And then, when someone, I'm like, wow, thank you. There's nothing, but I guess it takes personal experience. Like when I know that I'm not always right. As a human being, we're not always right. We're not always wrong either. So we can't beat ourselves up when we're wrong all the time, So it's like, I feel like when you're once comfortable in your skin, you have to realize that I, as a human being, is going to make mistakes. And I'm not always going to be right. I may be so highly opinionated on one particular item or topic, but that doesn't make that my truth is the gospel truth, because everybody has an opinion. Everybody has gone through something differently. If I talk about me coming out the closet and I feel this certain kind of way, and you tell me your version of how you came out the closet or whatnot, we have to come together to realize, oh, it's not just my story that matters, it's your story that matters too.
Yes.
All of our story comes together, it matters. So it's like there's more than one way to gain the knowledge of something, so yeah.
And the thing too, that with everybody has their own journey and struggle, and everybody goes through something. Mm-hmm. Everyone, and again, the way my own journey can be different than yours, but because I went through stuff, then that's how you could also relate with other people's struggle and other people's pain, because whatever is affecting you now, it's like, imagine how much I actually, sorry to change from one thing to another, but okay. I was talking to a few friends and they were complaining about what's going on right now and how their local Target is closed, and Walgreens, and name it, all the stores that have been broken into, right? And I got into it because they said, this is not right, and XYZ. And I'm like, okay, so you've been not okay with this situation that's affecting you right now for a week or 2 weeks. You yourself, you're being affected, so you cannot cope with it, right? Yes. I'm like, okay. Now imagine feeling like that your whole life. Imagine your parents feeling like that your whole life, your grandparents. So you're complaining about 1 to 2 weeks. Imagine you living that your whole life. And I'm not trying to dismiss your feelings, but just how you're so passionate and so confused and stressed out about what's going on right now. Imagine feeling like that your whole life. Yeah. Just so they could get a perspective too as to how they're feeling right now. Well, I just flip it in a way where they could maybe, relate.
Yeah. And that's so important because people forget, a lot of this whole thing currently, hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag All Lives Matter. And, a few years ago when I saw in my lifetime of seeing the big Black Lives Matter march too, and all over not as big and global as this one is, but just then I had a different opinion than I do now. And that opinion was like, why you gotta be building up the cop cars? And, I was trying to make up excuses, trying to get it to All Lives Matter. And I was really jaded. I'll be the one to say as an individual, like, why are you acting like this? And I would always see comments. Like I never posted anything at that time. I posted a lot this time, but that time I didn't post anything really. I was reading a lot of comments from a lot of people who did post things. And it was just really a lot of attacks, a lot of people not really realizing why this person posted anything. I'm always someone who likes to dig and try to find why do they put that or connect it to something. But I myself was like, come on, like, why we got to act like this? They already have their opinion on us blacks, like we're criminals and this and that. And now we're lashing out at police cars and this and that. And they're not all bad, and they're not all, they're not all good, but we're not all bad and we're not all good. So it's like, where's the medium? But now when this whole situation that's going on, my mind flipped as in like, I get it where it says hashtag Black Lives Matter, because you hear the thing that says hashtag All Lives Matter. Like, we're not considered of the all.
And that's exactly it, that the movement itself, the hashtag Black Lives Matter, was done because it didn't happen once or twice. I recently saw it too, where it's like, it's the same thing, it's just now being filmed. Mm-hmm. So all of these incidents have happened so many times. And again, if you as a community, like you on your own community are seeing crime and nothing happens, you are going to get frustrated.
Yeah.
You could call 911 and nothing's happening. Then you go and do signs for things to change. Nothing happens. So it does get to a point where then this movement started. And because of the movement and the hashtag Black Lives Matter, then, and I'm going to be ignorant here, but maybe a white person then did like all lives matter. Because I don't know if it could have been a Latino. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, then all lives matter. But that's and I'll do a side comment on all, but all lives matter is, if you don't include the Black community there, then it's not all, it's most lives matter, but it's not all lives matter.
Yes.
So you have to like also understand that when you say all, you're literally saying all, and by all is all humans. So if you then are not counting Black people into the mix, then it's not all lives matter, it's most lives matter. And then I recently told this to someone, then what happened after that hashtag? Then blue lives matter. And I'm sorry, then I'm gonna sound a bit harsh with this comment, but I 2 days ago I told someone that is pro all cops, that I told this person, I'm like, look, you keep saying blue lives matter, unless you're a Smurf, then then you have a blue life, because there's no such thing as a blue life. There's a human life, and that human is a cop, but there is no such thing as a blue life. So no. And I tried to make it into a joke in a way, but just so he could understand it.
Yeah.
But even with the word all, and this is again me, what I tend to do when I do post and where I speak, I never use the word all. I say most, or if it's a specific incident, I always say these two individuals, or these two cops, or these Latinos. I'm very specific to the story and say XYZ, but I don't tend to use it. And I don't recall ever using the word all when it comes to a group.
Yeah.
I'm always very particular, because the minute you also say all, you are also then becoming a problem, because then you're generalizing that everyone is like that. So it's pretty much saying like all Hispanics are immigrants. That's wrong. All Black people are XYZ. That's wrong. All white people are XYZ. That's wrong. So you could say most. You could. I always recommend for people, just say most, because not everyone is like that. The minute you are saying all, you're also sounding ignorant, and you are also becoming a problem, because you cannot do that. I have a lot of all types of friends, different races, and I always tell them that, like, don't do that, because then you are also sounding prejudiced. You are also sounding like you want to justify just because, you know, you're a minority. Now you feel you could also do that. No, there's a lot of white people that support the movement, and just like most white people are against it, because it's affecting their safety and their what they're used to, and
that's
all
what it's like in our
shoes. And that's why I feel like don't do that, because then you also become a problem.
Yeah.
By using that word specifically.
I 100% agree on that. And I appreciate you breaking it down like that. Not all are good, not all are bad. You know, so.
And I understand that. I understand that there's cops out there doing their job.
Yeah.
Their own families are worried. I understand that, and just like I have empathy to the people protesting. I have empathy to the cops. I understand that, but here is where I do challenge the good cops. If you are working in a system where they already have a negative perception of you, as a good cop, what are you doing? Are you seeing something and then shutting up? Because if you're shutting up, then you are also part of the problem.
Yeah.
If you're a good cop, I saw recently a video where 5 cops recorded themselves, and it was like a mesh video where they kept speaking about the current situation. They're like, this was a murder, and I don't agree with it. We wouldn't do this, XYZ. And to me, it's like, so if you are also a cop, a good cop, but you're staying silent, you are also a problem, because then you're part of that system, the system that right now is not in the best perception within society. And this is this is a question I'm trying to answer to myself that what made this particular incident outrage us worldwide,
Wow.
that
Yeah.
worldwide everybody is getting
World.
involved.
Yes.
It's not just within the
Yeah.
US, like we're seeing like, UK, like Italy, like
Yes.
Spain, France, like a lot of places where we would never see anything.
Exactly.
So what happened this time around that made us say like, this is getting worse? Because if I could say, I didn't want to see the video initially, because I always say once you have an image, you cannot get it out of
Yeah.
your head.
Yeah.
But part of me wanted to see it again to answer questions to anyone that would later come at me and said, well, in the video XYZ. I'm like, well, no, because in the video, blah, blah, blah. And I did see it. And to actually literally see someone's breath just like gone, and that person is gone, that is traumatizing. And I maybe like that's what got people to like, now we're seeing this, what's next? Like literally we're gonna see someone's face explode, like like what are we doing? And I think that's what maybe the outrage is. I don't know why the whole world got involved, but it is amazing that we're all getting on this. Even within the US, all 50 states had a protest. All 50 states.
That's amazing.
And that has never happened before with any other incident at all, whether it's Black Lives Matter or any other movement. It has never happened. And you also have to ask yourself, if all 50 states actually got together and to make a change, then we're telling you as a society, something's wrong. Something does need to change.
And I'm sorry, getting Army and everything else involved is not the solution. Walking with us is the solution.
Well, thank you that you're also bringing that up right now, because I thought about this too. And whether you're pro-Trump or not, you have to ask yourself the following question. When it came to COVID-19, Trump took forever to get us help, to get us aid, to prepare us, to protect us from this. It took a while. However, when it came to this particular incident, he's sending us a message like, well, I could get an army, I could get people out there, boom, attack your own civilians. So when it came to the COVID-19, he took a while to protect us. But for this that doesn't go his way, then he's pretty much saying, I'm just going to throw people out there and you kill yourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's American people within the army that are, going against us. So he's just putting us against us with each other. Again, whether you are pro him or not, you have to ask yourself, like, he doesn't care for anybody, not even Republicans, because there are a lot of Republicans in the army. And that they had to go and do this. And it's like, you don't even care if they themselves get killed. Like, you don't care for anybody but yourself. I mean, he is a narcissistic person, and, you can't expect much when someone is so narcissistic. And the more attention, like, I'm sure he's been on top of the world, because the attention is always on him. And when you have a narcissistic person, that's what they want. It's all about them all the time. All about them.
It completely is. I agree. I really do agree.
And then going back with our own communities and again trying to relate or sometimes educate other people. At least I'll speak again within here people in Illinois. There was currently a lot of happening in the Hispanic communities between again Latinos and Black people going into loitering and all of that, right? But again, don't generalize. Don't say that protesters are the looters and that they're
oh my gosh,
doing all
exactly.
this. Please don't do that. And I did tell a lot of people within the same Hispanic community to then don't do a racial profiling, because there's a lot of African-American people living in the Hispanic community. So now because you see someone walking that, according to you, that's the person that's going to be, assaulting your little store, like, also don't do that. And I challenge them as well, because sometimes you also have to challenge your own people. And I did tell them, like, when it came to DACA, immigration reform, to kids in cages, what did you do as a community to fight? And again, show me proof that you actually were there for them. So right now, you're all together as a community, as Hispanic, where we're not going to allow this. But where were you when immigration, with DACA, with ICE, with, again, kids in cages, and I could go on with the list. But it's like, it's also hypocritical of people to act that way, because you're only speaking up right now. Again, why? Because it's affecting you. And just like you are speaking and affecting you and getting so upset about it and angry, well, guess what? That's what we're doing right now. That's why we're protesting right now. You are complaining in your own community. Well, guess what? If you see the bigger picture, this is why we're doing it, because it needs to stop. And I'm sorry, again, you cannot pick and choose, but you cannot generalize and say that all people that are protesting are doing these damages, because I've been protesting since Saturday, except yesterday I took a day off, you could say, because I was mentally and emotionally like higher. And even seeing that, sometimes I was walking and I'm like, this person is not even with us, showing up, throw a break or something,
they have
and
their
then
own
stole
agenda.
something, and then they left. So to me, it's like they were not even with us. But now they left with XYZ, like, you know, and is the media going to show that? Is the 5 o'clock news going to show that? Of course they're not. There were a lot of positive things that happened through the protests, where people were helping each other. I would hear someone cough, and I actually was carrying masks. I was carrying hand sanitizers. I was carrying gloves, and I was like, do you want a mask? Do you want gloves? I had water on me too. I'm like, someone was coughing, and I heard her say, I'm thirsty. She was talking to her friend, not to me. And I'm like, do you want some water? And she's like, I'm good. I'm like, I have a few. People were giving granola bars, oranges, apple.
Awesome.
And you're not going to see that. And that's unity too. That's,
that is unity.
But that's not a highlight, because it's not going to sit well on the 5 o'clock news. They rather see people act stupid, and it's not even about, you know, what we're trying to do. And to another thing, everybody copes different in different situations. So if you and I, for example, were in a relationship and we're arguing, you might start throwing things. And I might be telling you, like, well, you got me angry because of XYZ. And I might be just talking to you the way I'm talking to you now. But on your side, you're going to be throwing things at me, cursing at me. And I'm like, wait, you don't need to do all that. But I cannot tell you how to react. I cannot tell you how to behave, because the way I behave is going to be very different than yours. So same thing when you're in a protest. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if your cousin got killed, your dad got killed, your mom got killed, because of everything that's going on, if I am so angry that I'm going to break a window, and that's me coping with it, again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if that is what that person is feeling, I cannot tell them that's right or wrong, because that's how they are feeling. And that's the thing, like, am I gonna personally do it? Knowing myself, I wouldn't do that, but I'm not gonna tell another person that is feeling stronger that that's right or wrong. You know, like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that.
That's when you got to eliminate the all, because everybody's focusing on the all. Like, oh, all the protesters are looting. It's like, okay, you just controversed that completely in that whole same sentence. Looting and protest. That's no. It's like, it's not even existing. Like, and then the social media, that, like you said, they trigger on one. So they're trying to get, like, oh, the protesters are doing this. Like, no, people have their own agenda. You got people who are setting us up. You know, undercover cops who I educated myself, and I'm so grateful that the real truth is our phones. You got to do a lot to fabricate that, you know what I mean, and post it up on live, you know. So that is our truth. That's our weapon. That is our defense. That is our everything right now, is the camera, you know, our phones.
Yep. And I actually, funny, but I always take 2 phones because my battery it's gone fast. So sometimes I record it on one phone and I don't post that until later. And then on the other one, I'm going live so they could actually see. Sometimes you can because you're running from, from place to place. Like here downtown, when we were in front of the Trump Tower, they started throwing tear gas. So obviously everybody started running. We're in the middle of the bridge, so we have to run because we don't know what's happening. Sometimes you're so far away that you can't see, and all you see is people coming at you. So of course you're gonna like run.
Of course.
If you hear a noise, you're gonna react, and that's also human behavior. Like it is what it is. Again, it's part of the protest. Someone said, "Are you afraid of getting hurt in the protest?" And I'm like, well, that's also something you have to ask yourself. Do I want to go? Because some people say, well, that's collateral damage. I'm like, it is. And you are going in knowing something might happen to me. Am I okay with it? But that doesn't excuse cops from still, again, I'll speak from my personal experience. There was a situation where we were just on hold. We were not moving. They were literally blocking us. And a cop out of nowhere just came with his bike and hit us, like probably 5-6 of us, like literally hit us. And he was just trying to provoke us. And none of the cops were doing anything, but he just like hit us. He hit me pretty much like here in lower. And he just kept looking at me, and Latino. And he just kept looking at me. And I said, I'm like, do you really think I'm stupid enough to actually react to what you're trying to do? Yeah.
That's what they're doing, though, because,
I'm like, so you keep looking at me, I'm gonna keep looking at you. Do you, I'll do me, but I am gonna stand here. I'm like, so we could look at each other. I'm like, by the way, you're cute. And and I only said that just to get him
smart. Hey, that's smart.
And when I said that, he kind of like did a little smirk. I'm like, look, you're doing what you need to do on your end, but please understand I'm trying to do what I can on my end. So why are you being so aggressive? And funny enough, and this was 4 years ago. Funny enough, like the following day after that incident, I saw him again. He just waved at me. Like he was on his bike, waved at me. And I had a huge sign, so I waved at him. And even sometimes you have to talk to them to maybe, not all of them, but maybe get a different reaction and try to get them like to understand certain things. It's majority of the time it's not going to work. But sometimes you have to try it too, to get a dialogue in and to speak as to why you're also there. And this is again not helping. I'm going to now change the subject a little to not helping each other with our own community as Black and brown. And I'll speak this. I've also have had reactions where sometimes I've been asked on social media or within the protest, why are you here if that's not your issue? And I've told those people I'm here because exactly of that, because we have to unite. And if you're questioning me being here where I'm trying to support you, you're already like not helping the situation, because the more we get together, the more we are united, then it's better for the message as to what you're trying to do and accomplish. And again, going with social media, I was pretty much within the first 3 rows of the protest. I always try to go to the front. And what was funny with news and newspapers is that you would only see Black people being upset. So you would only see when they would like do this and upset. But you don't see all of us different
all the color.
You don't see that because they don't want to see that. They just want to show the angry Black person. And it's like, that's also not right from the media, and you have to make them accountable. Like a Hispanic network said to me, what do you tell those people that are stuck here that you are delaying them from getting home? Because we were stopping them on Lakeshore Drive here in Chicago, and it was during peak hours. So it was like 5 or 6. This was again a few years ago. And I told the reporter, I'm like, well, it is an inconvenience for them. They might be here for an hour or 2. However, they are going to get to go home and see their families. What do you have to tell to all of the families that are not going to see their brothers and sisters get home tonight? She had nothing to say. She literally said, well, thank you so much. She walked away. This
one's a smart one. I gotta go. I gotta run.
but you also have to challenge reporters because sometimes they are going to throw a question at you.
Oh yeah.
And I always make it, not because I want to be on TV or anything, but I always want to educate people, Hispanic specifically. If I see a reporter and I'm seeing that they're doing an interview with X person and I don't feel that person conveyed the message, then I do jump in and I'm like, do you mind if you know, like, can I get a quote or blah, blah, blah? And I always like try to chime in. Because if I feel like, oh, this person is also sounding ignorant, it's not helping us, like, let me just say something different because it's not going to be the message that I want Hispanics to also hear, you know?
Yeah.
Because the minute, and unfortunately with Hispanic culture, they see something on TV, it's like, you see, I heard it at the 5 o'clock news, you better not go on. So you also have to educate your mom or dad because they'll see the 5 o'clock news and like, I told you because, you know, well, back in the day it was Christina, which was to us Oprah. Well, Christina said XYZ on her show. It's like, no. So even with those things, again, it's educating people, whether people that are protesting, whether they're reporters, again, taking the conversation at home and challenging your own family. Like, I feel at the end of the day, you do have to challenge your own family because you're not going to feel that sometimes I'm not going to understand it. Even me, I get challenged by my own family at times where they're like, well, like, why? You know, like, why
it has nothing to do with us or something like that, huh? But I think that's what really makes this stand out. I guess that's why when I was saying earlier how I get it more now, because the reason why we're saying that Black Lives Matter is the fact that this concerns all of us. And I know I'm saying all, but us as a whole entire race of humankind. You know, this affects us all because, and it's just amazing how you see the whole world, marching and walking and protesting with us. And then I sit back sometimes as an American and I'm like, if the whole world can get it, why can't we? Like,
and also going with how we live in the world today, we live in a social media world. And some people, which I found extremely interesting, is that they have huge followers, but they were afraid to put anything because they were afraid to lose followers. And to me, it's like, that says a lot because it's not just posting a black square and it's like, I did my thing. Yay. I feel good about myself. Because if you were to also ask me like, well, I posted, what's next? You also, again, it goes on you. Well, what can I do locally in my own community to help out? You were saying you hate that there were people breaking into your little store here in the corner. I saw a lot of posts where it's like, on Tuesday, we're going to be cleaning, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you were against the protest, well, go clean then. Go help your neighbor and clean. So do something, do also something. But if you're so afraid or you just want, and I actually haven't posted that video, which I am going to post. This girl was recording herself helping a store, but at the beginning of the video, you'll see that she is pretty much like pretending to help. And then you flip the image, and because someone was recording her, and it was the boyfriend just doing that picture so she could put it on her Instagram that she was doing something. So it's like, it's also pathetic to see that a lot of people are doing I was told I was protesting because I was fishing likes and because I wanted likes, and I was like, whatever. But there are a lot of people that will just put that black square and see, well, you see, I do help, I do protest. And to me, it's like, it's more than a black square. The movement is not just one post and that's it. It's not reposting things. It's actually doing something. It's emailing people. It's calling locally to your authorities, making the change, putting the pressure on them. So when it comes to social media, you do have to put that also out there. It's not just doing something now you feel good for yourself. You're being selfish if you're going to do that. Then you're not doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it for you because you want to come across like this great human being that did a great post, and it's not about that. That's also not. I say people protest differently. And if you are going to use your social media, do it for others. Don't do it for your own advantage, because it's not about that. Then you're losing focus and it's about you. On Tuesday, I was calling people out on that. I was like, today's not about you. It's not about your brand. It's not about your selfies. It's not about you at the gym. Even a lot of go-go dancers that I follow, they were doing that, or their OnlyFans page. And I was like, it's such a turnoff. Only one person here locally I saw that he put, I'll send you a nude for 20. I'll send you a 50 for a video, and I'm donating all of that protest to this organization. He was the only one, and I know him.
I think I've seen that before. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
I know him, and I do believe he is going to do that. But he was the only person that said, I'm going to use my body to get, get you to send me money, but I'm going to use this money, and then I'm going to use it for this organization. He was the only one that I saw. But everyone else, you also have to challenge them, not just because you find a porn star or someone that you find attractive. Oh, I'm not going to speak up. Like, you have to speak up and challenge them. At the end of the day, you have to challenge everyone, whether you find someone attractive or not. Again, family or anybody. I mean, that's why I say you also have to challenge your own community. As a gay person, I'm not going to just sit there and have all of these gay people bash the protest and say F this, F that. It's like, no, remember your own riot, remember your own protest. So it's also
what did you have to do to get there?
You have to challenge people. You always have to challenge people, and it starts with your own. Again, I'm emphasizing your own group, but your own family, your own group. So if you're gay, then challenge that. If you're Latino, challenge that. Like, challenge your own people, because if you don't, then you're also not making a change. Just like we say, like, and I was thinking about it today before even, I'm like, well, what can I talk to you about today? But I was actually thinking about this. You know how we saw the video of George, and we kept emphasizing that we should make accountable all of the 4 cops, and we kept saying, like, this needs to be across the board, all 4. Just like we kept saying all 4 need to speak up and do something. That's the same thing I feel with people right now, specifically in social media. If you're also not speaking up and not saying anything, you are like those 3 other cops. You're just watching things. You're just letting things like go. And then tomorrow I'll wait and I'll just put a picture of my daughter and a picture of my whatever. But if you also are not doing anything and just kind of like silent, you are also indirectly part of the problem, because you have to speak up. There is no excuse at the moment, like, for anybody not to speak up.
Yeah.
And it could be with anything you agree. You could even say, I don't want this to happen, but I understand this movement because of that. Like, you have, again, I keep repeating the word challenge. You have to challenge people.
I agree. The world, a lot of us, and I'm just saying that as in general, not putting anybody in a box, but a lot of us think the world owes something. The world, everything is about us, when it comes to social media and opinions. It's like, well, it's about me and how I'm feeling, and it's like, when you put yourself out there, you have to realize it's not always all about you, because we have this mentality out here, like, it's about me and not your opinion on what you think, and that's ignorance. That's ignorance in a box, if I say so myself, because there's and you can see it, a lot of them, that it's about them. You got the people who own some of these, not own places, but just the way they kind of act out on here on the social media, they forget that this whole thing is showing you that it's not all about one in particular person. It's all about all of us. It's not just about you. It's not just about you. We are marching so we can get rid of that. It's only about this one person. We're trying to march beyond that. A lot of people will say, oh, that's dishonoring George Floyd. And like, he was just a cherry on top.
Yes.
He was the last straw. We got to do something, because it's not going to change. We know that we've been knowing this has been existing. It's just finally someone got it on film. And it's sad that it had to come to that, but in a way, there's always got to be a sacrifice, to make a change. you know, and it's sad it has to come to that. You won't believe this is happening by word of mouth. It's like, we're trying to tell you this, like, well, I don't see nothing, so it's not happening. That's ignorance, because people always got to believe what they see. And it's like, why do you got to see it to believe that we're going through this? I'm just listen, they just killed so and so, they just killed this person, because it's not recorded, so you don't believe me. No, I don't believe it. You know, and it's just ignorance. It's just ignorance at its most. And I'm thankful and I'm sad that it had to take that. I remember seeing it on Twitter that a non-black guy, he was a Caucasian, saying that he too, you know, with the whole $20 thing, he also got arrested, but he wasn't planted face down, and he's still alive. He himself even said, "This is white privilege." You know, I applaud a lot of the Caucasians out there that are actually stepping up and just showing this is white privilege, you know, over the minorities and whatnot. That they are telling you, yeah, I don't have to fear anything. I can go outside and not fear anything. Why should I be scared just going to take a jog in the morning? Why do I have to be scared to do that because someone feels uncomfortable because maybe I have a hoodie because it's cold outside, you know, but I look like I'm about to steal and rob at, really? Just because you are misunderstanding, you're scared of what you don't understand, you know? So
Well, I mean, there has been situations where they were not even in the street; they were in their own home. So to me, it's like you cannot now. I cannot be in my own home because now I'm in fear. And I say me, but with incidents
no,
that
I know.
happen.
Yeah.
But it's like how like you cannot be peacefully now in your own house because something can happen like that. And that's the part where I feel like if you're Caucasian, you're right here. Automatically, you're up here. So what are you doing to then help out all of us as minorities? And if you're a minority, which you're here, then you are supposed to fight so we could then be equal, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the part where I feel like a lot of minorities forget the struggle, forget where they are now because they didn't live it, they didn't experience it, they didn't have to go through that. So now it's easy for a young person to say, well, I don't understand these protests. But if I then tell you your own story, your own riots, your own things, then maybe you'll understand. Maybe not. But you have to make changes. And no one is okay with change. I think a lot of people struggle with change.
Yeah.
But if we don't make a change, then we're not moving forward. We're just standing there. And do we actually want to do that?
Yeah. How long have you been being an activist? Like, how long have you been doing this?
I mean, officially, or I don't know how to say that. How many years have I been? So I'm 40. Again, I'm 40.
And I'm glad you're proud of that too. Do not. No, I'm just because people try to be like, yeah, I'm glad.
No, I am very grateful. I'm like, yes, that's right. I'm 40. I would say I've been doing this now for maybe 17 years, I think.
Wow.
Give or take.
That's amazing.
I've lost friends along the way. Again, it's about challenging, but I'm currently separated. But with my husband, I challenged his best friend to the point where I was disinvited from his wedding. So my husband went to the wedding. I didn't, because we started talking about politics and how he is more, I'm not going to say a Republican, but it kind of leans that way. But, I've lost friends along the way. I've lost family members that I don't speak to, co-workers. This past week, right now I'm on Facebook jail time, like I had mentioned to you, but I have been unfollowed, blocked, reported. People have DM'd me and said, you're a terrorist. You are this, that. People have threatened me to actually like do stuff. And sometimes people ask me, are you scared? I'm like, nope, I am not. I'm not challenging people to come and do something to me. But nope, I can't. I'm not going to you're not going to intimidate me. If that's your objective, some people kept, a specific person just kept messaging me and saying things. And I'm like, do you understand? I mean, we could be doing all day, like do this, but you're not going to affect me at all. You could say anything to me. It's not going to affect me. I've heard everything negative there is to say, from me being gay to me being an immigrant, me having HIV. Like, I've been through so much that people have thrown at me that it's like, you're really not going to affect me.
That's it? Is that all you got to say? Anything new? That's like, not in the book that I already got?
I mean, people have come at me many times, but it has only made me stronger to the causes that I feel passionate about. Mm-hmm. And when you're coming at me, the first thing I do, actually, if it's on social media, I go to their profile and I kind of go back and read and like blah blah blah. And then if I catch something, I'm like, well, what happened with it? And I take a screenshot. I'm like, well, how about here? What happened here? Because you said this. So doesn't this contradict what you're telling me right now? And I go personal. Call it what it is. But sometimes I do say, even recently with a woman, she said something very, very stupid. I went on her profile. I saw she had three granddaughters. Uh-huh. I did a screenshot and I sent it to her. I'm like, is this the message you want for your 3 granddaughters? Is this what you really want to tell them? I'm like, how about if they were in danger? How about if someone were to kill them? I'm not wishing that upon you, but what would you do? I'm like, I'm 100% sure that if your 3 granddaughters were to get killed right now, you were with me on the streets. I'm like, say something different, please. I challenge you. And she never replied.
Right.
She never replied after that.
You better know your opponent, okay? That's all I gotta say. Because a lot of people are ignorant. They're ignorant. They just want to say something because they feel like it's right. You are entitled to know what you're thinking, but know who you're throwing it at.
Or sometimes you have to throw humor. I grew up, and I grew up in a place here called Little Village, which is primarily Hispanics, which is considered the ghetto. Mm-hmm. But even now, and it goes based on how you look. Sometimes you have to use humor to get people's like point across. So sometimes I have said, look, I may be gay, I may look like this, but I am from the ghetto, so you better be careful. Because don't let this fool you, because no, and it goes against.
Let's go.
Hold on. I'm like, hold on. And again, it goes, unfortunately, people see this and they might think something different. They might even ask me, well, you've never been through a lot. What have you gone through? And just, again, based on what they might be looking at. And anybody that goes into my Instagram, not recently, but like all back, there's a lot of selfies of me. So anybody that may not know me may think just specifically on Instagram, it's all about him. It's all about like selfies all the time. And if they want to have that perception, it's okay.
Right.
But when it comes to like these things, like, I don't care what perception you have. I don't care if I don't post things. I don't care if I do things that I'm never going to post. If I'm volunteering somewhere, you're never going to see it because I'm not going to post it.
Yeah.
If someone catches it and they post it, that's a little different. But I'm not going to do it because they don't need to know that. And I feel a lot of people should do things not expecting to, let me throw a picture in because I want them to know that this is why I'm doing it. Again, the minute you're doing that is because you're just doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for the movement. You're not doing it for the right message. You're just doing it because you wanted a cute selfie, said that you were in that event, protest, or whatever,
Yeah. Now, you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how important is it of your state of mind? Like, how do you prepare yourself when you walk out that door, when it's dealing with like a protest or anything like that? Like, how important is it of your state of mind? Like, you got to be saying, it's like you're obviously prepared for war in a sense, because you don't know who's going to ask a question. You don't know what to expect out there, How important is it? And how do you prepare yourself like mentally?
Well, I always go alone. I like to go alone because I don't want, if someone says, hey, Armando, can I go with you? Sure. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I go alone because I don't want people to be in jeopardy, or I wouldn't even feel right if something happens to them. Like I do my own thing because again, like you said, like how do you prepare yourself mentally? I know that I need to be focused. So if I need to run, I'm gonna run. If I need to jump a fence, I'm gonna jump a fence. And I'm not gonna almost be distracted if I have someone there. Like I don't want to be thinking so much. I want to be more alert of what's going on. How do I react? How do I help people in the protest too? Because if someone fell, I turn around, I'm like, come on, let's go. Or let me grab your backpack, and I start running with them or whatever. Like I'm more alert and focused on what's going on in the movement. Do I get emotional? Yes. Sometimes when we're walking, literally walking, that is just peaceful and we're not running anywhere. And I see signs, I see the unity. I do cry at those moments. Do I tend to get emotional? I don't want to get emotional in the protest, because to me it's like I'm losing focus, but I'm also human. I'm feeling it at the moment. There has been 4 years ago we went to a popular event here, which is called the Taste of Chicago, and we actually invaded the Taste of Chicago. We all got on the floor and we were dead silent, quiet for like 5 minutes or so. But that alone, it was so quiet that I started to cry, because it's like, how can you not feel this energy right now? So there are moments where I cry. Normally I'm just very alert and focused, and only after I get home, I do give myself, like yesterday, a day where I'm like, okay, like I just need to like not see stuff. And even that, I always say I'm not, but I'm always like still on social media.
It's easy. It's like a habit. It's like an addiction.
So, but I try to like not think about it at the moment, because I feel like I'm going to lose focus as to what we need to do. And I should just be alert again, because it's kind of like at work, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you have to be alert all the time, because things can happen very quick, where you are walking and suddenly people are running. You have to run, you have to jump, you have to do what you have to do, with the possibility again that something may happen. And you also have to go with that mindset of like, something may happen. Recently, which I never have thought about it. Well, before, when I was with my husband, he would always know my location of where I was. And I would always say, like, if something happens, like, this is what, or I'm at 10% battery.
Smart, yeah.
But like now, recently that I'm separated, a friend of mine, she's like, I know you're going to be out there. Can you please share your location?
Yeah.
Because I still want to know. If I don't hear from you by 8 p.m., then, I'm going to call.
Yeah.
So things like that, where I feel like if I could give any advice to anyone that's going to go, always go prepared for the unexpected. Always tell someone where you're going, share your location. Or if you cannot share your location, update them every hour or two, send a text, hey, I'm okay. Something where it's, you're informing someone where you are in case something happens to you. So that's also important if you really want to go out there and do stuff. Make a change.
Do you think parenting or who you surround yourself with has an influence on an individual on how they see the world?
Yes, totally. I think the way you raise your kids, they're going to have already a mindset of perception of people. Because if we see kids, little kids, they play with whomever. They don't
see
care.
color. They don't see no change. Just like, that's my friend.
Yep. And the minute they are a little older, 5, 6, then you hear the parent, well, don't go with that kid.
Yep.
Don't do that. And I think that then the kids start to ask themselves, well, why not? And then as a teenager, you're hearing more ignorance and more ignorance. Then, of course, I say ignorance, but in your own little world, you were raised that way. So to you, it's the right thing. Because to you, that's the norm. And to me, it's like, and I get that. And I understand that to a certain extent. Because then later on, and I'm not excusing it, but let's pretend I'll excuse teenagers. But when you're already an adult and you already know right from wrong, and you already know all of the things on our society, but you still want to excuse it, well, I was raised this way, I was raised this way. No. No, to me, it's like you can no longer excuse how your parents told you what was right. As an adult now, you're accountable for your own actions. So don't tell me I was raised that way. Don't tell me that's the only thing I saw, because that's just a lame excuse. You have to educate yourself, because unless you were in an all-white school and never got to interact with any other race ever in your life, and you're an adult and you somehow interacted the first time as an adult with someone that was not, maybe I could give you a pass, maybe. Yeah. But if you were in school, guess what? In school, they taught you history, and in history, there's a lot of mixed cultures. So
right.
Even that, you have to ask yourself, well, what happened with the Indians? What happened here? Like, you have to ask yourself those questions. So there is, yes, that can happen, but to a certain extent, then after that, you have no excuse as to why you shouldn't educate yourself at all. But parents, unfortunately, do have a lot of influence on us as kids. But then again, I'm using the same word. You have to challenge your own parents. And then the thing is that our parents are teaching us in how to grow up in a world where it doesn't exist. Why? Because when they were our age, the world was very different. Just like when I was 15, when I was beat up at 15, it was a very different world because I felt comfortable calling the cops. Yeah. If you were to tell me now to call the cops, do I still trust some of them? I do. But part of me is like, am I hesitant? And even, and again, people react very differently. But even with, now that I just said that, I remember a specific incident where my husband and I, we were driving, they stopped us. And the first thing the cop said to us is like, aren't you guys supposed to be on the north side? Because Boys Town is on the north side of where we were. We were on the south side. Yeah. So I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, you guys, are you supposed to be on the north side? I'm like, what do you mean by that? And I started to get upset. And of course, my husband, ex-husband,
he's like, calm down, huh?
he grabbed me and kind of like, and I was like, I grabbed this and I'm like, no. And I'm like, what are you trying to say? And I started to confront. But again, I look this way. So of course he didn't say anything or say much. He's like, here, you guys can go. Yeah. He didn't say anything. But, things like that can happen. And some people are going to act a certain way. But I don't know. It's just difficult at times.
Yeah. Wow. And you're a radical one.
I don't know why. I honestly, if I were to tell you how my family is, I'm the wild card, I guess, because I'm the most outspoken one in my family. None of my family is outspoken. They're outspoken within the family to argue.
Of course.
But I'm the only one that has been acting this way for years.
I think you've educated yourself on unfamiliar grounds.
Yes.
And that's what makes you stand out and be able to be very outspoken, surrounding yourselves on unfamiliar territories and learning about that,
And sometimes it's uncomfortable and sometimes it's still okay to ask.
Yeah.
Like Tuesday, when I started to see at midnight the hashtag, I'm like, am I supposed to just put a black square? I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly. I was thinking it's sick because I saw it, right? And I was doing it, and then I saw something later. I was like, wait, hold up. Oh,
Yeah. And then my first initial hashtag was Black Lives Matter. And then a friend of mine DM'd me, and he's like, dude, change that. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be this. I'm like, thank you for telling me. And he's like, and you could continue to post, and you could do this, and you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. And I'm like, well, since you DM me, I can ask you a question. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, can I do this? Yes, you can. I'm like, okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. I was thinking the same. I was like, don't post anything. I'm like, don't say nothing. I was like, but then you think about it, wait, that's the wrong message. We're trying to silence.
And then I started to see, because it took me a few hours. It literally took me a few hours. I'm like, what am I supposed to do today? Like, am I supposed to not say anything? So
how can I?
Yeah.
Break
so
the rules.
I'm like, and then I even said to myself, I'm like, I'm not supposed to talk today because maybe it's not just like today is literally just African American people speaking. So
Yeah.
I should not say nothing. So it took me a few hours to actually, but I did ask around. I'm like, hey, am I supposed to do this? Is this okay? Can I do that? Can I not do that? So then when I started seeing it on others on social media, then I was telling them, hey, you can't do this. Hey, you're supposed to do this today. Hey, just remember today's about this. So then because someone again educated me on it, then I was telling others like, don't do that, or hey, just so you know, I don't know if you're aware. And I think that goes back to like about your first question, like how do you become an activist? You also have to ask around. You also have to like inform and learn and not be shy about asking questions. And even if they're ignorant questions, because sometimes you may ask it in their ignorant questions, like, is this okay to do? And you know, your own friends, your own community can say like, no, no, please don't use that.
But how would you know if you don't ask?
Or they could even say like, oh, this might sound a little. I did it last night. I always send my post to a few people before I post it. I'm like, how do you think, what am I trying to say here? And they're like, well, this. I'm like, no, let me fix it up.
Right.
I'm like,
That's
what
good.
about this? What about this? And they're like, well, what are you trying to say? I'm like, this. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
And I do it for a few reasons. One, because I still struggle, at least grammatically, sometimes to convey my message. So I do ask people around, like, hey, what about this? What about, is this accurate? But I still ask around. I'm not shy about it because, again, like you're educating yourself and you're educating others. So it is important, you know?
Yeah, that's so good though. That
I mean, let's keep
it's
it
like
real.
a proofreading, and that's good. Yeah.
Even again with the square, like I kept seeing it, but let's keep it real. Like you have to like sometimes ask and if it, especially if it's not again within your own group. So I'll speak like I'm Hispanic, but if I'm posting on something else, on another group, then I have to be informed. I'm like, can this sound ignorant if I'm posting it? Like you have to ask questions and figure things out on your own. And I think the best advice is ask your friends, because they know that you're not coming from a bad place. They'll understand the message you're trying to. If you ask complete strangers, they're probably going to say, no, you're this or that. But ask your own circle of friends and tell them, how does this sound? How, you know, is this okay? And you'll get the best response. And that's, again, how you could start being an activist and how you could start like speaking on others, just by asking around and getting informed and educated on the matter.
Yeah. I agree on that too, because I like writing in-depth messages when it comes to my writing, especially on Facebook, because you know, versus posting pictures, I do more writing on there. And for my birthday this past weekend, I woke, like I say all the time, like I woke up crying, you know, just because of what's going on, and just really really hurt. You know, I was angry the last day, the day before. I was so angry. I almost posted a really bad podcast episode, just coming out and like, you know what, I recorded one, but that's not going up because I was reacting out of anger, which is not the way I want to go about things, you know? And so I never released that.
But sometimes you are going to do that.
Yes.
And you're going to fall into that. I did that on Facebook 3 days ago, where I was feeling so much that I'm like, nope, I'm not going to allow it. So my whole rant was like, look, thank you for allowing me to see your true colors. And now I know what you did like these past days. So in the future, when you're asking for help, when you're saying, oh, what about my group? What about this? I'm going to call you out and say, like, oh. So I'm like, I'm going to bring those receipts and I'm going to say like, remember this? Nope. You're not getting my empathy. And some people said, Armando, that was a bit harsh. I'm like, I don't care. But I got so involved. Emotionally involved that you will fall into that, where sometimes you might post things that because you were so angry. But then again, it's taking accountability. You have to go back then and say, if someone says something to you, like, yeah, I meant it and that's what I felt, and I'm not going to apologize for it. You know? Unless you're being ignorant, then of course apologize.
And I totally agree on that too, because I feel like just as myself, I hold myself always accountable. And if someone calls me out and says something, I am the first one that will say like, oh, I didn't see it that way. You know, like maybe I will remove, which is rare. I rarely ever remove anything. I'm like, well, you know, thank you for pointing that out. I'm not ashamed of that. And I'm glad you shared with me, how that made you feel. And I'll ask
Mm-hmm.
somebody else, because just like you do your proofreading, I'll send it either to my mom or some of my friends who have that similar mentality like I do, and I'll ask them not to agree with me, but do you see anything wrong with this, or what are your thoughts? And they'll read it and they're like, "Wow, that needs to be out there," or something like that. So it's always good to get another's opinion sometimes on things, not to stop you from leaping out on
Mm-hmm.
faith on some things, to see what it's going to do. Because how else are we going to learn if we don't at least attempt or try to do it? Because life is always a learning lesson, and there's always so many things, and mistakes don't exist unless you learn from it and make it better. So I do look back on my life with like, no, did you make a mistake? Like, no, because without those mistakes, it wouldn't have been a learning block for me to become who I am now.
Well,
So
I always tell people, you are where you are for the things that you did and the things that you did not do. Because even
exactly.
the things that you didn't do
Mm-hmm.
allowed you to be here. For
Right.
those things that you stopped yourself from doing
Yeah.
and never did anything, that's why
Yeah.
you're here. And for the things that you actually did, that's why you're also here too.
Yeah. 100% agree on that. Um, do you think America will ever understand equality? And do you think me and you will live to see that?
We're not. Unfortunately, I would
Yeah.
say like we are
I mean, I
never gonna
prayed
see that.
about it,
I
you
hope I
know.
get to live like, well, I'm 40 already, so
Can I be 79 and see it change? I will be able to die in peace.
maybe,
Yeah.
may I don't think that we
Yeah.
will in our own lives, but I think that's exactly the point with what we're doing now. That, and I even posted yesterday or today, um, children, and I
Mm-hmm.
said we're doing it for you.
Yes.
We're doing these things for you, because even one post that caught my attention last night, cute little baby, but the message is like very clear. It's like, when do I go from cute to dangerous?
I saw that
And
one. Yeah.
to me, when I saw it, I'm like, because the first reaction, I went like, oh, he's so cute. And then I read the thing. I'm like, makes sense. Like, it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Like, and speaking again about our own community as within the LGBTQAI community, that even
XYZ.
XYZ, I'm like trying to remember
You have
everything.
to laugh at that, though. You know what I mean? We have to.
Even with that, some people, I did call them out, because some people, when they're very attracted to the urban culture and Black or mixed men, again, gay or women,
Yeah.
they're very about that, right? But when it comes to like this, they don't say anything.
Like, real
Like
quiet.
they're very quiet. So it's like, you like everything. You like
Yeah,
the
right. I know
culture.
what you're talking about.
You
You're
like the
about that
man.
bedroom. Right. You're about that bedroom. But when it comes to a stand, like, oh, it
Yeah.
was good while it lasted.
And to me, it's like, you
Right.
open your mouth for things, then open your mouth for other things. So
Right. And that's so true,
yeah,
as it may sound, but that's a fact. That's a fact.
I mean, it is what it is. And again, I do see it even with some, well, actually, surprisingly, and I'm not like, people here in Chicago DM me and were surprised as to how active I was with this movement, um, because some thought I would fall into that, what we're just speaking about, just that fetish or that thing,
Gotcha.
of just me being attracted in a way just to that. And I'm like, no, I'm like, like,
Yeah.
even now I'm gonna put my I guess I'm gonna just throw myself under the bus with this. But even a friend that I have, where we have our fun, he messaged me. He's like, I'm very surprised. Like, I honestly thought it was just
That, yeah.
us playing and that's it. But I'm genuinely surprised to see that, because I don't know the guy like a lot, and again, I'm putting myself with this information, but But I'm keeping it real. Like, I've known him for a couple of months, and he was surprised to see that. So, I don't know. Even with our own community, our own gay people, it's like you have to call them out, even if they don't like you.
Right.
Block me, I don't care. But it's the truth.
Because you jump on that real quick, so why ain't you jumping on this? Okay. Right. If an individual came up to you and they said that they wanted to be an activist, what would you tell them?
If they wanted to start being an activist, I say start with what counts the most, which is voting, because that's our primary voice. Before voting, which is in November, locally try to see who you're voting for in your own community. Like, is he or she going to protect me from what I'm looking for? That's a form of being an activist, because you're protecting your own community. Then from there, try to then go from local to then your state. Well, regarding the state, what are they going to do for us within our state? And then from there, obviously go bigger, which is to then our president. He or she, what are they going to bring to the table? That's a form of being an activist, because then you're counting at the end of the day the most important things, because we could go and protest every day. We could continue posting things on social media. That's really not going to make so much change if at the end of the day, we don't go and vote. So people also don't see it as a form of an activism move, that by voting, and your voice does count. And even if you may think it doesn't, it does count. So I would say start by doing those things. And then once you do that and start to ask yourself, you're going to follow groups. Once you follow groups that support your same view or goal, within those groups, they're going to have meetings. They're going to have, activities where, next Thursday we're getting together for blah, blah, blah. And then you start to get more involved with local events or protest and so on. And then by doing that, then you're obviously getting to more know people. They'll invite you to things. They'll throw information in, because sometimes, even now with me, sometimes they send me videos that I never watched. And then I just post, because I'm like, okay, well, this looks good to what I want to, the message that I'm trying to send out. So even that helps too. But locally, I think start there, and then, you'll obviously do your own message, what you want to achieve with the message, and how to start.
Nice. One question for out there, when you're out there, have you ever been in a protest where it kind of got like it went wrong, as in like some incidents or being attacked, or has anything negative came from it during the protest?
So from all of them, this is the first time where I did get scared, because it was the first time that I was experiencing things that I have never. I've seen it on TV, I've seen it on social media, but I've never seen it with my own eyes. One of the incidents was they went into the Gucci store downtown. But again, these people were not people that were protesting. So when I was there, I literally heard a loud sound. So of course, you turn around to see what's going on. But that moment became surreal, because I was recording, and I'm like, should I be standing here? Should I walk away? Should I report people that are stealing? I didn't know the feeling, because it was so new. And I didn't know how to understand it. And then again, it's coping. I'm like, well, maybe, because you also have to you cannot say that all the people that were loitering are not protesters too, right?
True.
So I'm like, okay, maybe some of them went in, like,
trying to make an excuse for them.
or something. I'm like, oh, I need a bag, so let me.
I
don't know. But part of me was just like, I didn't know that the feeling to that. But again, as we were marching, it did get violent where people were being pushed. There was one situation where we were in front of the Trump Tower and the cops were hitting us on our ankles for us to then fall and drag us out from the crowd. And when that was happening at that moment, I'm like, well, something's gonna happen. Let me just be prepared. This was the first time that I actually took milk in case they would throw pepper spray on me. So I had my milk on my backpack.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, if anything, because I was literally like a few people in front of me than the cops. But I was in a very in the mode of like, if something happens, what are you gonna do?
Prepared, yeah.
But I was in fear, and I was more in fear because this is also the first time that I go as a single man. Because prior, I was with my husband. He knew where I was. If something were to happen, he would pick me up.
Yeah.
But now this time around, I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Was I scared? I saw a lot of the cops more aggressive too.
Yeah.
Normally they were not. I mean, at times they have been, but not to the extent of how they are right now. So that was another added thing where it's like, okay, this is also a new behavior from them. Like, what am I supposed to do? How about they hit me? Like, so, you know, it a lot of different things happen around. At least I'll speak here for Chicago. The behavior of the protester was different, and the behavior of the cops was very different too.
Wow. Whew. Just that mentality you have to get yourself in. It's like is crazy. Man, milk, yes.
And you go there too, because I saw it at I guess to a lot of people too. You could sometimes tell who goes there the first time, like who goes and protests, because the way they're behaving and stuff like that. I saw some girls. I'm like, I don't know, I don't know, but they were wearing semi-high heels. I'm like, well, like their hair perfectly done, you know, makeup, like done, and I'm just thinking like
what are you here for?
So, well, you could see my hair, but when I go, like, my hair is pulled back. I wear a hoodie or a hat. Like, I usually because sometimes you also have to be alert. Some of the protests happen quick. So sometimes I'm at home and they're like, hey, can you be here in an hour? I'm like, sure. Boom. I like go quick. I'm not gonna be like, let me blow dry my hair.
Right. What heels am I wearing? This is shirt
what looks
right.
Well, and again with social media, what looks cute in the picture if they take, you know, if I'm protesting, no.
What if the newscasters, they come to me and like, you know, interview me? I want to make sure I look good.
Because some people are going to be that way. But no, you could sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you could tell when it's a new person protesting that they want to do it more because it looks cute, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're really out there, you don't care how you look. Sometimes they could get a great shot of you where you're not aware. And that has happened to me, which those pictures I haven't like really posted because they're more meaningful to me. And I don't need to see that or show that side, but there has been incidents where I've seen pictures. Even Saturday, a friend of mine on Sunday morning sent me a picture of me, and she's like, this is you or your twin. And a photographer took a picture of me as I was sitting, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. But I didn't like someone like took it, and then for my friend to recognize me. But you have to go again with the mentality is like, you're not there to take pictures, or someone can take a picture of you and use it against you. So are you prepared for that as well? Because I posted a picture where I was in front of the Fifth Third Bank, and a lot of people have been DMing me that I broke that window because I am standing in front of the broken window. And
I actually like that picture, by the way. I would love that one. That's the one I'm using to advertise this.
Well, they some of them claimed that I did that. Some of them said that they were going to report me with my job. So you also have to take that into account.
Yeah.
Like, do
Yeah.
you want to post a picture where they could use it against you? Can someone take a picture and use it against you? And if so, they might take that to your job. How is your job gonna like react on
Yeah. That's
that?
right.
With my previous employer, I don't know about this one to be quite honest, but my previous employer, they knew that I would always protest. Sometimes they would even come to me. They're like, Armando, what time is the protest? And I'm like, it starts here, it's gonna be here, try to go here, this is closed. Okay, well, I'm leaving early today. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because I was downtown at that time. And I would leave the building with my big sign.
Right.
And I would
Going
just
right
look
away.
at them. I'm like, yeah, that's right, I'm going again. So they knew like certain things. But those are also, I guess, other things that you have to consider when going protesting, because do you want all that risk? And if your answer is like, no, because I don't want it, then I'm just going to post on social media, then that's okay too. Like, you don't have to be there, living it there or in the front line. You don't have to do that as well.
Yeah.
There's also ways of donating, which is donate your own money to organizations that are for the cause. That's also helping out too. And that's a form of like reaching out the message. So that's another added thing where it's like, some people are like, well, what can I do? Well, you could do a lot of things at home. You could still do so much at home without necessarily being out there.
I like the fact I actually learned that actually for the first time this go around is that there's so many ways of protesting, because I used to think that I'm a bad person, I'm not out there, but then I realized, well, I'm gonna really use my platform as a social media just to do anything that I can to create the awareness. And also it's like I learned a lot funding, social media, talking even with the image being all black and using your voice, is a form of protesting. So it really, I learned a lot this go around. So I'm actually very grateful that I did. And instead of going into it jaded and not aware and being ignorant, going in and saying something and not educating myself on what I'm talking about, and try to see it from all avenues and all around, just to see, okay, if I say this, um, is that correct? Historically wise, making sure I got everything correct. Or if I put this out, um, how is that representing me as someone who's seeing what's going on? Is it affecting it in a negative or positive way? I'm someone, I don't like being always in my head, but I am always in my head.
Yeah.
That really puts me in a pause. But I know that on this one, I'm just like bam, 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 just posts, at first probably with anger, but other than just showing you positive, because I'm so grateful. I've cried so much seeing all the positive, like the peaceful stuff going on. I've cried when I seen the police walking, with the protesters. I've cried when they're embracing each other, speaking out that we're not like them, and what do you want us to do? Kneel. It's good to see that, because I know we're always focused on the bad. And media, they're always, look at them, they're all, all like, all you cops are, they're not all,
No.
it's, they're not all. There's some that are walking with us. So we need to also acknowledge that. We can't acknowledge it, because that just shows you there's a gap in there where that change is wanted. And so if we keep on focusing on all the bad, it's like, then we're going to have that negative opinion on them, just like they'll have a negative opinion on us. All those blacks are looters, they're breaking into this place and that place. So it's so good to show both sides, I should say, because nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. We're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes, but in some mistakes are not mistakes. They're intentions. And there's a clear difference between a mistake and an intention, and I'm just glad and grateful that that is being shown, because I mean, looters or whatever it could be intended. Like, I'm going in there and I've seen people who are not just all black been looting. I've seen all colors going up in there. And I mean, they look just like you said, homegirl with the flat hair and heels. I've seen people in heels and they're going with bags. I'm like, they weren't prepared to do that. I'm like, That ain't no protester. That's like, ooh, today they're looting. I hope they go in that Gucci store because I'm ready. I saw them heels. I'm about to fight somebody for it. It's like.
Well, and sometimes I also feel because of everything that's going on, you have to cope with it with laughter too.
Yes.
And with humor,
Yes.
because it also helps us as individuals to cope with the situation, and just to not be so overwhelmed to see all of this. Now that you're saying that, like a friend of mine, he posted, I was laughing, but I was like, what? I'm like, only you would put that. Again, I'm on the south side of Chicago, but Boys Town to me, the gay community is on the north side. But he posted, if you're gonna loot our Boys Town, I need poppers. So I was like, really? And I was laughing, of course, because I know his personality.
Yeah.
And I know it's coming from not a bad place or say.
Yeah.
It was humor. He always uses humor.
Yeah.
But it made me laugh. It genuinely made me laugh. I'm like,
we need that sometimes, though,
Yeah, like out of all things, you wouldn't say like I need poppers. So that made me laugh.
Like, go get one for me, thanks.
I kept seeing so much things that it was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then I was scrolling, and then I see that, and I just started laughing. I literally started laughing. So sometimes it's also funny to cope with situations like that,
Yeah.
Laughter, I guess.
Yeah.
Not make
Healing.
Fun of the situation, but just overall, like.
Yeah. Making it a little lighter, compared to how harsh it can be. Because we already know it's bad. It's just all, but why not put a little something in, like, to lighten it up, like, well, da-da-da-da. It's like, bitch, no. So, I mean, I'm the same way. I appreciate that because I am one that doesn't take everything serious. It's like, well, it's not, that is kind of funny. It's like, but so many people are so little, it's saddening, but it is what it is. It's our society,
Yeah, of course.
Wow. So we're rounding up to my last few questions. So if you had an option to change anything in your life, looking back on your life, would you change anything?
No. And I say this, I generally say this. That's why I'm also grateful to speak about my age with pride.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes negative things, at least for me, I'll speak for that, made me the person that I am now, because I wouldn't feel I would be me right now. I guess the most for me it was when I was diagnosed with HIV. If I were to go back and tell myself, like, would you change certain things, but before getting infected? No, because as messed up as it sounds, because of that specific incident, I changed my whole life around. I changed the person that I was. Not that I was a bad person prior, but I just became I had more compassion for people, had more empathy for people. So that negative thing helped me become a better person, I feel, and to send a message out that, even me living with HIV now, it's like I still want to show that side to people. It's like, look at me, and I'm healthy, I'm okay, like I have a life, I have a normal life. You could do the same thing. So if I was to go back and change things, I think then we wouldn't even have this conversation, because maybe I would be in a completely different state of mind or mentality. And I appreciate the things that have happened. So that's why now I'm like, I'm 40, that's right. And I've done this and I've done that. Like, I do it with pride because I'm grateful because of everything that I did before. So no, I wouldn't change anything. Would I change certain reactions that I had? But this is more like on a personal level, like with family issues. Yes, my approach would have been different with certain word usage. I always say words are power, and sometimes you also have to be very careful with your words. So if I was to change anything, it would be my approach at certain situations with my word usage. That's the only thing I would say. But as far as overall, no. I feel content and happy with the things that I've done and not do.
Awesome. I see life like that as myself. When people ask me anything like that, I'm like, no. Even if you were to ask me, would you do it all over again and be the same color? I'm like, heck yes, I'd be black again. Even though, like, no. I love being black. I love my skin tone. I love where it comes from. I love my hair. It took a while for me to like that because it was complicated. All right. So if there was a window that showed you your 6-year-old self and you had 10 minutes to tell them anything, what would you tell your 6-year-old self?
That there's gonna be challenges where you are gonna ask if you are doing the right thing or if you're following your heart. And if you are following your heart, then continue to make those decisions because everyone around you is making choices for themselves. Everybody's has their own path, so they're making choices for them. So don't allow people to make choices on your life, and you make your own choices that you feel content, that you feel happy with, because you cannot live anyone else's life but your own. And if that means not doing XYZ, because again, to a previous question, because that's not what your family taught you or what your religious belief is. But if it's making you happy now, then continue to make those choices. And it's not gonna be easy, and it's not gonna be what you want it to be. Do you wish you could make things change? Yes, but you're not gonna make those things change, and that's okay. So just continue to focus on that, and then you're gonna look back and you're gonna cry about it. You're gonna think, I wish certain family would be different, but certain things in your life would be different. But continue to do it the way you're doing it right now, and you're doing it great.
Wow, thank you. That was good. That was good. Thank you. um, well, is there anything that you would like to add to our listeners and viewers once I do get this up? Is there anything that you would like to add or have any questions for me?
Well, to add to our conversation today is there's a difference. I'm going to back that up to our dialogue today. There's a difference between a conversation and a dialogue, because we could be talking for hours and not get anywhere. When you're having a dialogue with someone, you're actually hearing them.
Mm-hmm.
You actually are trying to understand their point of view. Again, you may not agree, but you're hearing them. You're actually listening and paying attention to what they have to say. And I feel if you could do any change in your own life, have a dialogue with family, with your partner, with society, and try to see where they're coming from, why they're behaving that way, why do they have that mentality, how can you change that mentality, in the sense of like, they might never see my own journey and what I go through, but let me speak because I know that he is my friend, so he's gonna know that what I'm saying is the truth. If I tell him, look, at 15 this happened to me, at 23 this happened, at 9 whatever, they're gonna know my own journey, and maybe then they are gonna take it to their family and say, well, you know what, my friend whomever said this, and I believe them, and just like him, there's other people that go through it, and that opens up the conversation to then into a dialogue to say like, okay, then we could make a change. So if I was to tell anybody that, it would be to have a dialogue today with someone that you trust, that you feel that they'll understand you. So then, because it's like a virus too, in a way,
Yeah.
where you tell it to someone, that person spreads it to someone else, and then it just becomes more and more and more until we actually get the message across. And sometimes you're never gonna get the message, but don't allow that to stop your voice from not projecting the message that you overall want. Like right now, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, but it doesn't stop today. it doesn't stop tomorrow. Like we still have to continue doing this on the daily, not just with our brothers and sisters within the African American community, but every other group. Like we have to think about other people aside from yourself, aside from your own values, and question at times your own values and say like, okay, like where is the moral compass? Like where am I as a human being? But let me ask you a question.
Okay.
With currently what we're dealing with and more of the protest in itself, do you feel that people are going to be more active, whether they support it or not, to go out and vote? Do you think this time around people are actually going to go out and vote?
That answer would be kind of neutral, but I do believe that in particular message is really being broadcasted now, because I know we're trying to change something, right? Change the views of how people see us. But I do believe that message of getting out there and voting to see a difference and a change is definitely being broadcasted. And I think it needs to be even more broadcasted so that we all go vote, because I know a lot of voting didn't take place for our president, who the president is now. A lot of people didn't vote a lot. And what's going on now, just a reminder that we need to vote. Do I see it sending the message of going to vote? Yes and no, because some people are going to believe that no change is going to happen. You know, because you can't stop that mentality. People are always like, no matter what we're doing, this is not going to stop. So yeah.
And I ask you this question, and also kind of like to end our dialogue today, because with the previous question that you mentioned about how can you become an activist, I think you could also offer yourself like on November, like if aunt doesn't have a car, like let me take you, go vote.
Yes.
You know, like I have friends that don't have cars, like don't worry, I'll pick you up. I'll go, like we'll get there early. Like you could even do that, help out. If you know your neighbor is, you know, someone older, help him or her out. So you could even do that, just simple things like that, where it's like, you know what, I know someone wants to go, they don't know how, they don't have the transportation, whatever. It's like, or they're making an excuse like, well, no, because it's raining.
Yes,
like, don't worry,
yes.
I got you. I got an umbrella. I got the car. I'll bring you food.
Get up.
Like, you know, so that's another way. And I guess I wanted to ask that because I feel, you know, we're having all of this happening right now, but at the end of the day, the ultimate protest is the voting.
Yeah, because then it will be all for nothing. So I encourage, and I do believe in the power of voting. Just like you said, as being an activist, that's one of the number one things. If you don't want to go out there in the streets, your being an activist can be in voting, because you are looking into your community, what you want to see would change, and then overall, you know, so this is how you show your voice matters.
I agree.
Good. Well, as we close out, I want to say thank you so much for allowing yourself to be an open book and to share your views, your opinions, your experiences on just being an activist, because and keep doing it. And I just want to encourage anybody who's listening, just really listen with open ears, and you can make a difference. We all can. So again, Armando, thank you so much for doing this episode with me.
Thank you again. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter, and you know, just so we could have a bigger impact. Even what you're doing now with this is a change, and it'll have people to question themselves, and even again have a dialogue within the people that will hear this to see certain things. So even what we're doing now is a change. So thank you for allowing me to participate. And you know, when it comes to that, anytime you want to like call me or hit me up, just let me know. But again, thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
And that completes today's Talk About It Tuesday episode on Nacho's Cafe. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next Tuesday for the next TBIT episode. And remember, when you run into a mental wall of personal perspective, Talk about it.